and I would like to welcome you again to our webinar today. Our topic will be automatically convert all input formats to PDFA. First, I would like to introduce myself briefly. My name is Thomas Zillman, and you can see my picture at least here on the right side. And I'm working for LuraTech in the sales department, and as LuraTech is also quite active in the PDF Association and the PDFA Competency Center, I'm also the managing director here. I will do the webinar today together with my colleague Armin Ortmann, who is the CTO of LuraTech, and Armin will introduce himself in a minute. And from the, let's say, spirit of work, I will do and try a rather short presentation of some slides, and the major part shall really be Armin's demo, where you really can see online and live how to convert all input formats to PDFA. So Armin can introduce himself and give you also some practical hints for our webinar.
Yes, thank you very much, Thomas. Hello and welcome also from my side. My name is Armin Ortmann. As stated, my picture is the one on the left-hand side. I'm going to perform the software demonstration a little later on. And the technical hints are as follows. You may have noticed that you are all on mute. That doesn't mean we don't want to hear your questions. Instead, it means that you will have to enter the questions in this little questions box in the GoToMeeting software. And we'll see them then, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout the presentation. Our experience tells us it's not always possible to answer everything or answer everything publicly. For the questions that remain unresolved, we will get in contact with you later on via email and try to send you the answers in that way. Also, we do have a little questionnaire that shows up at the end of the webinar, and we kindly ask you to answer this handful of questions, which will help us further improve our webinars and select contents for future webinars and so on. Also, we will make a recording of this webinar, which will be available to all participants, as well as the presentation by Thomas. So much for the technicalities, and it's back to Thomas for the actual webinar.
Yes, thank you, Armin, for the introduction and the hints. Yes, let's start with our webinar. A very brief overview I want to give you about LuraTech for those of the attendees who do not know LuraTech yet. So LuraTech is a software company based in Berlin with subsidiaries in different countries like the UK or the US. In general, we understand, and this is our goal and mission, to be the expert and specialist on document conversion for scanned documents as well as for born digital or so-called born digital documents. Basically, LuraTech offers two product lines. The one, and this will be the focus of our webinar today, is a LuraTech PDF Compressor, which is a production-level application for compression, conversion to PDF, to PDFA for scanned documents with OCR and full text searchability. Our second product line, which is not the focus of today, but we also offer regular webinars here, is our Dockyard product, which is a complete production planning and management system. So this helps to implement and control and manage a full input management platform. So this hopefully gives you a short overview. And then I would like to start with what I call the world picture, or the title is Everything to PDFA. We have it since the early days of PDFA, which was back in 2006. So it's 8 years after now, as long as PDFA as an ISO standard is available. And now, or in between, PDFA is well accepted and in broad use by a lot of customers and applications. So they're really on the way. This is also the topic of our webinar today, how to address different application areas and maybe deploy the PDFA for safe long-term archiving. So it's very generic, but I think you can map it to your application. So on the one hand, we have I call it the paper world, so where everything of the document starts with a piece of paper which is digitized, but as we will see, and as you likely know already, scanning to PDFA is a very good thing and offers a lot of benefits. Here on the right side, Windows applications take this as all the internal documents in your organization, in your business, which may be Office, which may be specific application, which generate business documents. Also the host side, which is output, and not really the LuraTech focus, but I know from a lot of partners that banks and insurances, for example, create millions of papers, very often still letters, but obviously they want to have a safe long-term PDFA document in the archive related to the customer where the letter went. And then what's mentioned here is PDF files. Think also of email, which is becoming more and more important, and we see a lot of email archiving and email conversion projects these days. So also here, obviously, it's a good idea to convert the email with all the ugly or hopefully nice and contents-wise sensible documents into PDFA. If necessary, PDFA offers from day one the option to add a digital signature and an embedded digital signature, and on the output side, those are the well-known benefits which you have also seen in the introduction movie. You have a PDF reproducible, which is a main goal, a safe, reproducible document which can always be displayed independent of the hardware, of the operating system, whatever is there or will come. Also for document exchange with business partners where you exchange them. This gives you a very reliable source and document base, and obviously it can be printed if necessary. When we look into the application areas, we like to split the world into two parts. The one is where we really start with a piece of paper, so we're talking scanning or scanned documents here. This may be digital mailroom applications where all the incoming paper mail is digitized and then goes into your digital workflow into the organization. This is folder digitization, so if you are a bank, for example, you have millions of credit folders which are available in paper, and to make them with all the well-known benefits better accessible, they are digitized in digitization projects. And here are the principles of scanned and the benefits which PDFA offers. It's very generic document here on the upper left side, which has some text in color and some image, and modern and sophisticated compression, which is called MRC compression, splits this, does not compress this equally, and everything gets bad, but it splits into 3 layers, which are internal in one PDF file, but obviously you can access this, and the different objects are the text layer, which is typically the most important in a business document, so this is also a lossless compression. So here we really get black text on white background, which is also optimal input for OCR recognition processes. That the text in the sample here was red and blue is in the so-called foreground image, and what is image parts, whether it's an image, whether it's a picture, a damaged picture in an insurance folder, whether it's a graphic, this can go into the so-called background layer or background image and can, depending on the requirements, heavily be compressed, and by this you can reach the samples which are displayed at the bottom. It all goes for one page which is scanned, so if you scan totally uncompressed in 300 dpi color, then you get 24-25 megabyte of size. You don't need a calculator for finding out this is not feasible, practical. This is why in the past black and white scanning was very famous, or if it had to be color, then JPEG was used. Obviously marketing did a little bit too much compression here, but you know this JPEG is simply not a good compression algorithm for documents. It's pretty good for my photos at home or your photos. And when you look into PDFA, then with the modern compression algorithms with all the benefits which PDFA allows, then you really come into the size, depending on the levels, of 55 to 65, and this is as large as you typically only know it from black and white documents. So this is really the state-of-the-art technology. The other side of the world is when you start with a so-called born digital document. You know them, you have millions of them. And just to list some use cases here, obviously for all the internal documents, so I put Office in brackets here, which might be Microsoft Office, which might be Open Office, which can be LibreOffice, and other applications in your industry which create documents. And obviously it's a good thing to convert them to PDFA for long-term archiving. I always like to emphasize that PDFA does not want to replace Office, so Word, simplest case, is very easy as long as I work with Armin on a concept. And we can use Word, we can do change marks, we can improve the document, but at some point in our workflow we think this is ready, or it's a version 1, and this is a good point in time from the logical workflow to now create a long-term safe PDFA file. PDF is a nice thing. There are thousands of tools around. Everybody knows PDF. The not so nice thing is that there are also tools which create technically bad PDF, and this is also where PDFA can help, that you can receive safe and high quality documents which does not contain any technical errors for your long-term or for your important business archive. And then, yes, a hot topic these days, email conversion. So a lot of customers, users, we know, work now, so they have very often the paper, incoming paper is under control. There are good solutions in place, and then obviously if you think from a perspective of complete input management, then email is the next thing, and you want to have and organize this also, and there's also a very important piece of a bigger game or bigger project to convert them to PDFA. Then the newest part of PDFA is called PDFA 3. So ISO generates different parts to address the ongoing technology improvements. And this one offers only one feature. So from a software engineer point of view, this is a little bit boring, or seems to be. And but this adds a lot of new use cases where this was also in PDF in former times, where you can use PDF as a container to carry something or to combine something which belongs together. And a very good description of the use cases is the so-called type, which has to be specified. Then you embed any file into PDFA 3. The one is source, which is very natural. So you embed the source into your PDFA 3 file. This can be the original Word file. This may be a CAD file from the engineering department, which you want to integrate or combine into one archive document, or even sign files. A very nice or short example is this presentation we are looking at here. So as you can see, it's a PDFA file, it's the PDFA 3 file, and I like to do it now as a, let's say, best practice that I always create presentations obviously in the PowerPoint format, but then for long-term archiving and for presentation I use PDFA 3, but I have one archive object which contains on the one hand the original PowerPoint source as well as a long-term safe PDFA view. The second type is called supplement. So anything you want to add which belongs to the document. This can be, I have this example from a meeting where we had a meeting minutes obviously, but somebody did a mind map and this belonged to this meeting. Or just think of measure devices which generates raw data which may belong to a specific document. So here are also application areas which are quite interesting. And the third case is the alternative. So this gives you another view or presentation of some business data. Here in Germany, but also in other countries, the topic of electronic invoice exchange is very hot, and here in Germany we have a specific standard going on, and this group decided to use PDFA 3 because it's really the best of both worlds. On the one hand, you can have an invoice still as a PDF file. Everybody knows how to open this, how to print this, and how to pay this if he wants to do it manually. But it contains as well the business data, so the invoice data, which is invoice date, invoice amount, value-added text, things like that from the business point of view, which is embedded technically as an XML file, and somebody or the recipient who wants to do electronic invoice processing can just work on the XML and bring this directly into his ERP system like SAP or other systems which are used for managing payments, financial things. So this was a hopefully not too long introduction to give you a little bit the setup. Now I would like to hand over to Armin, who will practically show how to convert all these different file types, documents automatically into PDFA, and he will obviously use our PDF compressor in the newest version 7 for that. Armin takes over, please.
Much. I think I am in control now. Okay, we'll start with a rather basic example. We have a handful of TIFF images here as they come off a regular scanner, which could either be a small office scan unit or a large commercial scanner for mass conversion. Just to quickly step through these documents, there are these kinds of forms and things you would get in a mail regularly. I beg your understanding, they're all in German, but I think the general material will also be familiar internationally. If we look at these files as they have been scanned, we see that they are about 24-25 megabytes each, which is a regular size for an uncompressed TIFF image of about A4 or letter size. Of course, a regular scanner could already use LZW compression for compressing TIFF images, or use JPEG compression and write out JPEGs or PDFs containing JPEGs, and in that case we would expect those documents to be around 1 or maybe 2 megabytes per page. I have in the meanwhile opened up the PDF compressor. This looks hopefully somewhat familiar for the users of the older versions. We have given the user interface a bit of an overhaul for version 7, but we have not changed the general handling and the way things work in terms of creating jobs and starting and stopping jobs and job list mode and whatever. But that's not the topic of this webinar. So for these 3 files, I have created one job actually which would convert them in a way that a regular scanner would do it, i.e. it will, I'm just starting it quickly so it gets done before I'm done talking. It will just create one JPEG image per page and put that in a PDF, actually a PDFA file. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The output actually goes here, and that's one thing to bear in mind. This is a rather simple way of converting such input, but it is valid PDFA nevertheless. I didn't add any OCR and hidden text here, but that could have been done as well. So that's also quite possible with the PDF compressor. But what you see here is that, as I said, these documents are somewhere in the 1 megabyte range. Actually, this one here, which is a pretty clean scan and which does not contain too much disturbance on this white background, it compresses pretty well and it ends up even slightly below 400 kilobytes. But as Thomas pointed out, we can be way more efficient with the MRC compression. That's what I'm turning on here. You see that by this little working icon. So that is another job, working off the same documents but writing them in this out MRC folder. As you see by the modification times, they're quite fresh. And as you see here, these documents are compressed way stronger. So that this last document, this invoice example, was 378 kilobytes in the less strict compression using mere JPEG inside PDF. But with MRC compression, we can get it to 40 kilobytes, which is a tenth of the other file. So you can add another factor of 10 for this kind of compression if you run these documents through MRC. You see it still opens up quite well in Adobe Reader. You still see it's PDFA 2U, and here as an example you can really switch on and off the layers of the MRC compression. So if I switch off the background layer, you see these rather pale and dim insets in the background. They end up in the background layer, whereas everything that's rather crisp and has proper edges to it, like these stamps and the ball pen marks, they remain in the document foreground. If I switch up text color, you see this is really this middle layer, this text layer for the document. Okay, so much for that. So you see with MRC compression, actually over the original document size, we can end up with compression ranges of 1 to 100 or 1 to 200 and sometimes even more. I didn't add OCR information here. That's a question that comes up rather frequently. The OCR does add a few kilobytes per page. It makes your compressed files a little larger, but actually really just a little. So such an overhead of, we are talking about 4 to 5 kilobyte for a regular page of printed or typewritten text. That may well be worth the effort, and it's not going to invalidate the overall compression result. I have another job here, which I'm also going to start right away because it will take a moment to complete. This one works with a typical set of insurance documents. At least in Germany, that's a rather common use case where insurance customers can send damage reports, can send in forms and incident documentation via email, and so what you get is sometimes a wide variety and also wide range of qualities of inbound documents. So this is an invoice for an expert taxation of a damage. We do actually have quite graphic examples of photographs, and you see they are not of the best quality in the first place. They have been run through some scanner already, probably at the customer's side. And we do have another bit of documentation, and eventually we do have this one-page record from the insurance database, which should also become part of the PDF. So, and meanwhile the job has completed in the background, and what it creates is this kind of one document, and you see it contains all 4 pages. It has preserved what there originally was in terms of quality in the photographic images. I hope this can be... I'm having problems with my screen size here. Okay, so you see images are still there. In this case, Adobe Reader takes a second to render them, and we do have OCR information, which is shown simply here by my being able to mark them with the mouse in Adobe Reader. That's a definite sign for hidden text information. And you see This document was also compressed quite impressively, but not as strong as the ones we had before. In terms of respecting the image quality, we end up at about 150 kilobytes per page. So there is, the thing to keep in mind here is there is quite a range of options to set for compressing such documents, so you can choose between different so-called document class presets. You can also adjust the quality here, and there are a few further options available here under this advanced button in this special dialog. This is of course pretty well documented in the manual, but we are also at hand with our support to help you determine the best possible settings for your individual task at hand. That's the thing to keep in mind here. There is another tab for selecting the OCR information, so you can switch between different language dictionaries, and also you have a range of options for the text recognition. The other thing that Thomas already mentioned was the so-called born digital conversion. This is the conversion of documents of, I need to reset this a bit. So here we go. This is a set of regular Office documents such as PowerPoint presentation, Excel spreadsheets, plain Word documents, but also actually 2 PDF documents, and all of these can be converted to PDFA, which is actually specified here. So the output format, in this case I'll take PDFA 2U. Here is a range of input formats, and these are the ones consumed by this conversion job, which I'm now going to start because it's also going to take a few seconds. And this one will actually, that's why I had to step back and copy a few pages back. This one will move over the inputs to another folder once they have been processed. So you see things disappearing from one folder and being moved over to the next. So let's see whether there is any output already. Yes, we do see things appearing here. So what was a Word document, albeit a pretty plain and straightforward one, has now been converted to a PDFA document in the background. So although there is a little more to converting these documents, which actually involves an installation of Microsoft Office or OpenOffice or LibreOffice in the background, which is used to render these documents. The PDF compressor does automate this task fully and just processes these documents on in this server-based mode in the background without any human intervention. Here again I can open up this PowerPoint presentation, and you see all individual slides have been turned into pages in this PDF document. You have to bear in mind that this typical case of an error coming up in the presentation. You have to bear in mind that this type of conversion requires an additional optional license. So of course this is available to everyone, but as an additional feature at additional costs. Once you have these capabilities, you are also able to set up conversion jobs that take arbitrary kinds of inputs. So this last example, which I'm going to show here, takes TIFF raster image just as well as PDF documents in Word and so on. And it will merge all that input into one single output document. I'm going to start it right away because it's also going to take a few seconds, and I have to reset it first. I just realized, so let me do that quickly. Okay. and throw away the old output in hopes of generating a new one, and I'm going to start it. Okay, so again we have this mixed batch of input documents, and we're now going to convert them to one output document, and that's actually a feature that was not present in versions prior to version 7, where you could not consume all these different kinds of input in one pass, in one and the same job. You see down here the PDF compressor shows some of its progress. I've set it up to use 2 of the 4 processor cores in my machine in order to not totally use up all processing power, which is usually a bad idea if you're doing an online presentation off of the same computer at the same time. Thomas, this is probably going to continue to run for a few more seconds. Do we have any questions already?
No, not yet, but maybe somebody has a question, and as you said, it's a good idea. Good point of time for the presentation or for the PDF compressor.
Actually, one more thing to note is that we do not, in this example, we don't convert any email messages, which is another option to convert messages saved in the MSG format as used by Microsoft Outlook. That is another additional option, which we don't demonstrate here, but which is also available. In a second, we'll show a few examples of how this looks in terms of converting email messages, including attachments. The fun part is, of course, to include attachments and not just convert email bodies and skip, for example, attached Word or PDF documents when converting to PDFA. So there is a question concerning email, and yes, it's actually really intended for a mass conversion of emails for long-term preservation, long-term archiving. That's our take on converting email messages to PDFA. So meanwhile, the job has finished, so you see the documents have vanished from the input folder, and we do now have one, well, I won't call it large, but one collection, one output document that contains all these individual input documents. So that you see there is this scan which we had in the example before, along with a mixed bunch of other things, but also this page, for example, which came from a PDF input document. Again, it's all PDFA. In this case, I chose PDFA 3B plus as an extra. We do have a bookmark which points to the individual beginning of each of the input documents. So you don't completely lose the structure of the input documents, but you get bookmarks telling you where the original started. You may wonder why there are 2 entries here called facts. This is due to the fact that we had 2 document name facts in the original. The one was a doc and the other was a docx, but they actually contain pretty much the same. So they ended up in here twice. Okay, concerning email preservation, especially to PDFA in terms of long-term archiving, I'm not going to show this interactively in PDF Compressor. I'm just merely going to show a few examples and talk about it. Assuming you have such an email message saved from Microsoft Outlook, in this case, in the MSG format, which I can just open by double-clicking it. It should start Microsoft Outlook, which usually also takes a few seconds. Hopefully, come on. There we go. Okay. So what we do have here is a rather plain, straightforward message, but again, this message contains a few actual documents which are also not so terribly interesting, but they are fully fledged Office documents in their own right. So this here, for example, is an Excel spreadsheet with a few diagrams. Okay, there you go. Anyway, I'm going to close this, and when you start thinking about how to convert this to PDFA, there are several options which are kind of limited by the capabilities of the 3 consecutive versions of the PDFA standard. The first version does not permit any attachments to PDF documents. So what we have here is a PDFA 1. That's the first version of the standard, and the only chance here is to convert everything to PDFA. So you do have, again, one document where, for example, the Excel spreadsheet is embedded, as well as the PowerPoint presentation and the text file and so on. And again, we inserted bookmarks that point to the first page of every original attachment. With PDFA 2, an extension was introduced to the standard that allowed for attachments to PDF documents. So now you can convert an email message with attachments to a PDF document with attachments, which of course has some advantages in terms of how things are represented and how you can, for example, extract the archival version of an attached document. But the limitation here is that all attachments to the PDFA2 documents have to be PDFA documents just as well. So what we have here, or what this example contains, it contains just one page representing the original email body, and then one attached PDF document converted from the original attachments to the email. This, of course, assuming that all the attachments can be converted successfully. You must, of course, always bear in mind that you need to have a protocol, you need to have error handling for attachments that cannot be converted, such as sound files, for example, whereas some rather tricky bits, such as extracting attachments from attached archives, such as zip archives or RAR archives, can be done by the software. So if all these attachments were contained in an attachment.zip file, that would work. But for example, if you have an executable file attached, what should be the PDF representation of that? A printout of the binary code? I don't think so. With PDFA3, the constraints were again lowered for attachments. You see this here right away. So with PDFA3, you can attach arbitrary files and still come out with a valid PDFA file. So in this example here, we did attach the original files, which can just simply be opened from the PDF document by double-clicking them. And this, of course, assumes that these originals can be used as long as there is software available to use them. So, for example, as long as there is an Excel version around that can interpret the formula in such an Excel document, or there is a PowerPoint or equivalent available to interpret the animations in such a PowerPoint presentation, whatever the extra value in such a document over the mere printable layout and visual representation of the document may be. Of course, you could embed PDF versions here with PDFA3 as well, and again, Here we have chosen the option of converting all attachments to PDFA right away. So again, we end up with the full range of pages, and again we have inserted the bookmarks pointing to the individual bits, but you still have the original version if you want to extract that and do something with it anyway. And there are further things one can imagine. So for example, instead of inserting the attachments here, you could also insert the MSG file, for example, here with all its attachments, which would imply you could open up Microsoft Outlook to get to the attachments at that point. So there is by now a range of options available for archiving your email messages. We are working on extending that, and we hope at least we have given you an impression of what is possible in this realm. So, Thomas, I've talked for quite a moment now. Did any questions come up in the meantime?
One question for you and one for me. Maybe we start with yours. So the one question was beloved question: multiple tabs in the Excel. Does it go to multiple files, which is I think the standard, and can you bring it together?
If there are multiple tabs or multiple sheets in an Excel, they all go in one document. I think there is an option to print only the first, or to convert only the first sheet, or to convert all sheets, which is the default, because of course they all contain something. So it's kind of similar in that sense. It's kind of similar to printing the Excel spreadsheet. Everything that is selected for print would be converted to the PDFA document.
Okay, thank you, Armin. Then
there is. I saw one more question. Can we attach other than document data? In PDFA 3, you can basically embed arbitrary files. So if your email contains an audio attachment or something else, that can be embedded in PDFA 3 with all the implications.
Thank you. Thank you, Armin. I would like to add on to this point, because there was another question from the attendee in the United States, and I don't want to hide that there are also some people which look a little bit more critical to PDFA 3, like the Library of Congress. And personally, from my point of view, and I'm not alone in this world, I think this is a really perfect solution to, as I try to present this, to combine multiple things which belong together into one object, into one file, into one PDFA3 file. But I also do not want to hide, as usual, you need or should know what you are going to do. So obviously only the PDFA part of this file is long-term safe. So the one question was, can you embed a video? Yes, you can do, and it's a, I think, good use case. But the video itself, as PDFA is not a standard for dynamic movie files, will not become any second or millimeter more long-term safe. Or in the worst case, you can also embed a virus. So this is not the bad side, but something to think of and to keep in mind. And I don't want to hide it. So some call it Pandora's box, and I think it's a really good solution for documents. But if for whatever reasons in your organization you think this is not a good thing to go, not a good way to go, then all the other parts of PDFA are still in place, and you just don't deploy PDFA 3 in that case. Let me check. Okay, for the coming to the end of the webinar, I have 2 more or 3 more slides where on the one hand I would in 2 slides present the typical configurations. So Armin gave us a nice impression of PDF Compressor, how it works. He also by intent did a lot of things manually. When you deploy PDF Compressor in production, it typically runs in the background. Here would be the configuration for what I call the straightforward capture scan configuration. So depending on your organization, the size of your company, you have 1, 2, up to 100 scanners. I don't know whether you're a scan service bureau or another, or digital mail room within a large company. So scanners typically, or the scan client, produce TIFF. We like TIFF uncompressed 300 dpi, but sometimes for, let's say, pragmatic reasons, because there's a network in between, for example, you want to go for JPEG, where we recommend to stay or do not go below a JPEG quality of 90. Then PDF compressor is typically the next step in the workflow and does all the things which Armin showed us, and then there's more processing in the workflow until at the end it goes into the archive or document management system. Just to our experiences, our best practice with a lot of customers. So if it's a rather small configuration, then the PDF compressor typically just runs on the scan PC. If you have a small workload, if it's a medium one, if you have already 2, 3 scanners, then you have a conversion or compression server, which may be for the whole company or department-wise. And we also have a lot of large customers, so think of 50 million or 100 million pages per year. Then you obviously have a scan compression server or even multiple ones, and they use a multi-core option. So Armin mentioned the 64-bit version or not, I'm not sure. But this means you can have, I don't know, we have customers with 16 cores, 50 cores, so this really gives high volume here. When we look to the other way, and this is the second configuration, which also Armin presented, where you typically have more the born digital documents you want to convert, then typically PDF compressor sits behind the archive like a rendition server. We like to call it so-called rendition server. So it's really sitting behind the archive, depending on the applications, the whole workflow. It's always individual, but as a general idea. So you have an application which creates Office documents, you have applications which create PDF, and then maybe they go first into the archive, and then also logically, depending whether the worker decides when to convert or whether you do this centrally and automatically, you call PDF compressor more like a rendition server who's doing the conversion work in the background. For email, I was not brave enough to put this to one of the slides, so that's really individual, whether email conversion is already part of the input management, where say incoming mails are immediately to be converted, or you have a document management systems where you first want to work with original emails and then, let's say, a late conversion at the end of the customer case or whatever the business case is. So both ways are possible for emails. An overview about our license models and pricing to complete the picture. So we have worked with this for years and have a lot of customers and a lot of experience, so we hope to have a very flexible and fitting one for each user. Basically, there are 2 models. The one is what I call the one-time model. So think, in the beginning I mentioned the bank. I want to digitize 5 kilometers or miles, doesn't matter, of folders, which, for example, 10 million pages. So there's a model which gives you 10 million pages, and when the job is done, then basically also the license is used. For the ongoing things, so think of digital mailroom applications, things of email conversion, things like that. There are multiple models which fit a little bit the volume, and by this also have flexible prices here. So the advanced model is more for the smaller projects, which means starting with 12,000 pages per year up to much more than for our, let's say, standard configuration. We have the CPU core model, so which gives you already a high throughput, a high volume. So this is what we call the unlimited for one core. And as I mentioned, in high-end configurations with high-end customers, there are multi-core options, which it's always depending on what you're exactly doing, but we have obviously figures here to estimate that. But if you go beyond 5 million pages per year, then it starts with multi-page, and if you have 50 million, then you may need to deploy 10 cores, for example. Armin showed the new version 7, and some existing customers are also in the group of attendees here, so they obviously have a maintenance contract, and this gives them a free upgrade to our new version 7. So all the features which Armin showed can be deployed when it fits into your project schedule. So we're coming closer to the end. Check with Armin. Any further questions which I did not see now?
No, I don't think. No, I don't think there were any ones left. Again, if something comes up 5 minutes after the webinar has ended, don't hesitate to just send us an email or call us directly. You see contact information here, and you'll also, of course, find us on the internet. So I hope we got some information across over the current capability concerning the current capabilities of PDF Compressor. And once again, please fill out our questionnaire. We would like and we appreciate your feedback also for our future webinars. Thank you very much.
Now there's one last question, whether the upgrade is straightforward. Yes, basically it is. The only thing which is needed is the new license file. And as usual with any new software from any new vendor, obviously we recommend, or you even have a test environment, that you test it in your test environment before you put it into production. So we would like to thank you for your attention. We hope that you have seen or got a good impression and information that PDF Compressor can really serve as a production level server for our topic of today, automatic. So Armin showed the automatic mode of conversion of all input formats to PDFA. So I hope you got some information. As Armin said, we are happy to provide you a test version, which you can require via our website, or please feel free to contact me directly. And the next webinar, which email was a rather short topic today by intention, is at April 29th. So if you're interested in this, we would be happy to hear or see you again. As Armin said in the beginning, when we end the webinar now, then there's a short questionnaire. Please complete the few questions, which helps us to improve our webinars in future. We would like to thank you for your attention and have a nice day or a nice evening. Thank you and bye-bye.